So I actually just did today's task, number one, on Advent of Code 2024, but I want to show you it again, just to show you the process. So firstly, in VS Code, you'll notice I've got a folder. I made a file called input.txt, and this 01.js is the file I did for today. I'm going to pretend I didn't do that, so I'm going to make a new file here. And I'm just going to run that file. Obviously nothing's in there at the moment. And I'm just going to open up as well that input.txt. Now, if you're able to wake up at 5 a.m., you can get yourself ready like this, ready to start the test. Sorry, the challenge. Another good thing to do is to just put something like this in your code. So it equals bun.file input.txt. So ultimately, you're going to be reading in that file as text. So because you've got the text, you're going to have to await at the front. And then let's just start off with console.log input, and let's go and have a look at today's challenge. All of this stuff at the top here was largely nonsense, so we can kind of get down to here and we look at this. They give you always a sample input first, which is quite short, and then lower on you've got the real input, which is much bigger. This is why we put it into an input.txt file rather than just putting it in the main place. So I'm going to take this sample input and try and scan read here a little bit. So there's one problem, holding the two lists side by side. So we've got two lists on the left, on the right. It talks about the difference between the two numbers, figuring out how far the two numbers are. So for example, what's the difference between 3 and 4 and 4 and 3? Absolute difference, I guess. Sometimes one will be bigger than the other. So, and that gives you some examples, and it shows you for the sample data, which is this data here. It's looking for an answer of 11. So we're trying to always compare the number on the left with the number on the right. So what we're going to start with here is a bit of data wrangling. So, oh, I didn't mean code input. Let's go and run that bun file. We see we've got our input, and I just want to turn it into like an array at first, and then split that into two arrays. So that's going to be the first task I'm going to do. So they're going to be having new lines between them. So let's do input.split on a new line. Ooh. And just console.log that out. Okay, and then there's what, 3, oh no, I didn't split them. \n, there we go. And then within each of those I want to split them up as well. So there's 3 spaces, it looks like, between them. So for each line, what you want to do is something like line.split on that, and that's going to give us 2 numbers. So let's just call them x and y for now, and let's just console.log out x and y, see if we've got them correctly. Don't need to console.log out the line anymore. Okay, so for each one we've got an x and a y, and I want to put one of them into like a list called x, one of them in a list called y, or a and b, whatever you want to call it. So we've got an array for those, another array for those. So we want to do like a.push that one and b.push that one, and then let's just console.log out a and b. Notice if I put squigglies around these, then it's going to tell me the names of these variables as well, because it treats it as property values. Okay, we're going to need them as numbers, so let's just coerce them into numbers. Okay, and it wants so something about pair up the smallest number on the left, so we want to order both these lists as well. So a.sort. Now if we do that, it's not going to do numerical sort, that's going to do a alphabetical sort. So this doesn't matter, by the way, that we've got the variables called parameters called a and b here, because they're going to shadow this one, which is fine. Need a bracket there. Ooh, not that bracket there. Have we got them sorted now? Yeah, okay, so now we've got 2 sorted lists. So now we've got to loop through the index of all of these. So for let I equals 0, I is less than a.length I plus plus. Console, what are we doing here? Diff equals a minus b. I want the absolute value of that. Let's that into this array, and then just have a look at what we've got so far. Oh, what am I doing wrong? AI, the ith element of A and the ith element of B. Okay, 2, 1. So I've got the same numbers as them so far. Now I just need to add those numbers together. So I could clearly just put a sum here straight away, but I'm going to reduce A and B. Oh, sorry, this takes an accumulator and then the current value. And we're just going to add those starting from 0. And let's just console.log that one out instead. And we're hoping for what, 11? Oh, what did I do? Run that again. And we got 11. Okay, cool. So I've checked with the sample data that I'm getting the right output. And now usually there's like a link to the puzzle input here. It's just this. You can see it's an awful lot longer than the other one, and the numbers are much bigger as well. And if we'd thought that all the numbers were just one digit long, we may have had a problem with the ordering later too there. So we put that in, hoping. Now sometimes at this stage we find that our code isn't efficient enough with the input they give us, so it is worth bearing that in mind. But we get our answer, and then there's usually a box and we put it in, and then it reveals the second part of the challenge. So in this case, it will say, yes, you've got your first star. And now we go on to part 2 when we find out something was incorrect in the first one and we've got to do something different but with the same input. So we don't need to change this input, but actually what I do is I go back to the sample input again to check it against that. So I've just resaved my input.txt file. So here's the same example list again. We're finding similarities. So so we're not matching up, like this one doesn't match with this one doesn't match with this one. For each number in the first list, we are multiplying itself by how many times it appears in the second list. So 3 is here 3 times, that's 3 times 3. 1 isn't here at all, so that's 1 times 0. 4 is there once, so that's 4 times 1. And then we're going to add all those similarities together. So what do I want? So I still want my numbers in the list, but I don't necessarily want to sort them. So we can get rid of this code. Sometimes at this stage I actually duplicate the file and call it, like if the first one was 01, I'd now call it 01b while I work on the second part of the question. Let's just remind ourselves of what we've got. So hopefully, yeah, we've got those 2 lists. So I'm going to loop over the first, the numbers in the first list and see how many times they appear in the second list. Now probably there's some sort of sorting I could do here with the second list to make it more efficient, but hopefully I don't need to because the input doesn't look particularly long. So for each of these numbers, for that num2 of b, if num is equal to num2, then some sort of a count goes up. And then at the end we want to do what num times count. So I guess we've got a sum ultimately, or result, which starts as 0, and result plus equals that, and let's just console.log that out. Have I got it right first time? 31. Awesome, we were looking for 31, so let's go back to the initial list and put that in, and we get a number, and yeah, that was the number I put in, and then that told me I got my second gold star. So yeah, that's how I go about doing these Code Wars, not Code Wars, Advent of Code challenges.